intuitively intuitively grasping the risks to some degree. Software developers would say, well, you don't know what it takes to do this.
I mean, one of the things that I find interesting about intuition, particularly in the workplace, is the person that shuts up, doesn't say anything because they got a gut feel. They can't quite rationalize it, but they think that this is a step that the company should take or that the team should take. And they got that niggling thing, but they think, oh, I might make a fool of myself. So, hey, maybe vulnerability is at play here as well, right? So, and then somebody else around the table says it and they go,
oh,
missed the moment because the boss goes, gee, where did you get that idea from? And then all the justification comes tumbling out afterwards.
Yeah.
Not before, because the assembled have the evidence to back the intuition that the individual's feeling. How often does that happen? Way too often in my book.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, you know that I love intuition. I just love this topic. I also teach intuition. I've just done a few Instagram reels on intuition. I might do a few more. Because it can be really magical, like this idea coming in and you think, where did this come from? And I, as I said, I used to work in software development, and sometimes when we had really very difficult errors, bugs, they call them, to find, they can be very complex and different layers. And then someone would say, look, I'm not quite sure why, but I have a sense that I want to look here and I need this, and maybe I need another day and I want to research in this area. And obviously they do have skills and experience. It's not coming completely from nowhere, but often I said, yeah, go ahead, and then they find something. So I find it very magical.
Is that where intuition comes from, Jacqueline?
Well,
does it come from past experience? So, I mean, you just said you taught intuition, presumably the use of it. So,
well,
where does it come from?
That's the way I teach intuition is in different layers of intuition, and maybe for the different layers there could be different words for it, but in general intuition is referred to that you gain some information that is not otherwise obtainable through analysis or existing knowledge, at least for yourself. Maybe someone else might know it, but you don't. And I also researched the topic, as in I found interesting research projects that were conducted at universities and people who have a PhD, because I do bring intuition into businesses, and I know I'm dealing with very rational people, and you can't just say, oh, it just comes from anywhere, and you have nothing.
Hang on, did you just say humans are rational? Sorry.
Some of them are, and they like, the logic is a dominant sort of justification system, and
it's definitely the
makes
dominant mode.
Definitely sense. So with this particular, so there's one particular research. His name is Gary Klein. He wrote a book, The Power of Intuition, and he is a PhD and he researched the topic. And what he found is he specifically looked at professionals who work in high-risk situations, as in the fire brigade, ambulance, paramedics, defense force, SWAT teams, and that, and he they researched, so how do they make decisions? They are being called into a situation that they are trained for, but they don't always know everything about the situation. It's very critical, it's under time pressure, lives are at stake, so it's, it doesn't get more riskier. And what they found out is that they obviously base, they have experience and skill, they're trained for it, it's not just anyone. They also have a very good analytical mind. They do understand how to pull these situations apart and come up with a strategy. But then he said that, so they use they use these two, but they also use intuition, or what's called a gut feel. Often people refer to it as gut feel. They have a sense we should go this way, or we should do this strategy. And what was even more interesting, so they use these three modalities to form a strategy, which I already find very exciting, and that makes sense. And
So they use their experience, education, and then gut feel.
yeah, experience, education, skills, and then also their analytical skills, and their gut fit. So these three levels, this is what they use to come up with a strategy how to tackle this this disastrous scenario. And so these studies were probably conducted just sort of maybe 15-ish years ago. And then what they also did is that after the fact, they ran computer analysis on these scenarios to see what would the computer come up with. And I know, within 10 years, computer analysis might have vastly improved, but still, it's fairly relevant. So the computer analysis also showed that in most cases, they couldn't come up with a better strategy. Maybe they came up with a different strategy, but not overall like a better strategy in most cases. And I thought that is so stunning. So he then went with his team, they developed specific training to enhance intuition and to use intuition in the professional arena to help with decision making. And then he was able to convince the US, he's a US person, the US Defense Force, at least parts of it, the US Defense Force is huge. So I'm assuming, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming maybe a department or one of the states. And he was able to convince them to use this his work in their user manual. So I don't know whether it's been distributed across all the defense force, but at least particular departments are using his work on intuition in their user manual for the defense force. And I found that absolutely stunning.
So you're saying to me that it's important, obviously, from a context of integrity. If you're a member of the SWAT team or frontline services, you must have the training.
Yeah,
otherwise you're not fit for service, right? You must have the training. You must have the fitness level. You must have the skills and all the rest of this. But you seem to be saying to me that on top of that comes a layer of intuition, or besides that comes a layer of intuition, which is just a gut feel that something is here or there or different. And we see this in business as well. So people, in fact, I think it's becoming more and more important in business. Do I have that right? That it is something else? So where does this thing come from?
But there's still one layer. Where there's the other layer is the rational, the logic thinking. So you have the experience, but then you need to think it through. You look at different options. You think it through. What would be the most beneficial option?
And sometimes you'll have to be computing at speed, right? Because these situations are developing.
That's right. And then you use what's called intuition on top of it, because sometimes, and I have a couple of other examples from other professionals in different arenas, where they actually have gone against the data that was provided to them using data analysis. And that's only as good as the people who analyze the data, who put in the parameters. So it's very tricky. You can sometimes just manipulate a parameter slightly and you get a vastly different result. And they actually went against the data that was provided to them, against what their leadership team said. Look here, here's all the data, it's showing you shouldn't do this. And they said, no, I have this gut feeling, I have this sense I should invest here. and then they invested there where the data was not confirming the investment, and they've done terrific. And Netflix is one of those companies. When what's her name, Bozana St. John, who was the Netflix not CEO, but chief marketing officer, is an absolutely incredible woman. And she went against, this is one of her TED talks. She said, all the data was saying, do not invest here. And she said, no, I'm just feeling I need to give this a chance. She gave that other option a chance and just catapulted Netflix up into
the stratosphere.
the stratosphere.
So, but if it's intuition, then arguably you don't always get it right. And I'm interested in the subject because we live in a world of supposed perfect data, but it's never ending. You at some point have to jump off the gathering information and make a decision. So that is inevitably going to come back to what you decide. I mean, Peter Drucker famously said that managers should be making 6 to 8 out of 10 decisions correctly. Any less than 6, and you have to question competency. Any more than 8, and they're not making enough decisions. Because that's
yes,
the art of being a leader, making decisions.
Making decisions, that's right. And some CEOs have the strategy to make faster decisions, knowing that they will be wrong in a certain amount of decisions, but taking that into consideration. But also knowing if it is a high-risk decision, they probably give it a little bit more thought. And some people contemplate a little bit more. So they are different sort of balancing acts to use. But well, the thing is also with intuition or using your gut feel, you have to be also trained in it. You can pick up on something that is maybe not necessarily your intuition, or it could be mixed up with something else, and then the feeling that you get could be leading you in the wrong direction. So you need to have that awareness and your own experience, that you understand your intuition, how it talks to you. And it talks, I mean, that sounds strange, but our body is a sensory device, so to speak. It responds to frequencies. When I talk to you, it's a frequency. I sense something is a frequency. Everything is a frequency. So if someone, let's say, is inauthentic or has a hidden agenda, we pick up on it. We feel it in our body. We may not know what it is, but we think, oh, wait a second, I'm not sure about this person. Yeah, so I think it is important to also have that awareness, be present to pick up on it, and be present to pick up on it. Is it now, let's say I am in a conversation with another person, and I pick up on something, and I get instantly sort of lose my trust, because maybe I have trust issues. That's not your intuition. So you need to be aware enough to understand, okay, am I picking up an intuitive information, or am I resonating to my own resistance or my own experience that this person is just giving me something where I am being triggered negatively? And that comes through experience.
Okay, so it's going to go to my old mate. Is it Plato? That said,
Plato,
first,
your old mate.
Yeah, if you first know thyself.
Someone called Plato. Was.
First know thyself. But in the context of the being conversation, awareness, hugely important. The more awareness, situational and self-awareness you have, the more perspectives you're able to take of a situation and compute. So the training is this. And there's two other things that come to my mind in this discussion I want to get in there, is I wonder how much higher purpose and mission has to do with how our intuition behaves, and flow. Michaela sent me high and flow, that if you're a highly skilled individual, such as our SWAT team members, or even indeed a beautiful woodworker who makes fabulous things, knows what they're doing, but when they're in that, they're just doing it. It's just happening. It's almost like it flows through them.
This is, I mean, this is a really good point, a really good point you brought up, your higher purpose, because some of the decisions, let's go to the decision of Bozana St. John, who made the decision against the recommendation of her team for Netflix, being the chief marketing officer for Netflix at that time, against this. You need to be connected to something higher to have the courage to pull it through, and you need to understand why you're doing it. And a similar story is with Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who I've forgotten when it was, but a long time ago, when Apple wasn't doing so well. He initially worked for Apple. He went to, I think, Compaq, who was doing amazingly well at the time. And then he was asked to come back to Apple. And everyone was telling him, don't do it. Apple is going downhill. You are in a really good spot there. And it didn't let him alone. Like, he realized, I know I have my places with Apple. I have to go back to Apple. Again, a decision that would require a higher purpose, connected to something. Why? Because he had an amazing job there with Compaq. So he went back to Apple, and we know Apple just, found their feet again and skyrocketed. These are decisions, you don't just make them because you have nothing better to do. You have to be convicted for something. You have to know why you're doing it, and a higher purpose, I mean, is so important.
So if we're going to maximize our intuition, or in fact, our effectiveness as leaders, either of ourselves, our team, our company, or even countries, firstly, we need to do some work. Firstly, we need to have to make sure that we have the integrity to be in the position which we would hold, that we have what it takes to deliver in that context in terms of education, and then also and experience. Then we need to have a high level of awareness. And I would imagine then, in order to sell the idea, in order to bring that idea, like Rosanna St. John's, she would had to have had a whole heap of courage, and she would have had to have great partnership and great communication skills to pull that off. And so there's a lot of ways of being in this conversation that I'm throwing in here and saying, well, it's really important to work on ourselves, Jacqueline, so as that in that moment where we have to make a decision, where we do not have perfect information, that we can make the best decision we are capable of, and then we can rest, or I won't say be happy, because we might not always get it right, but we can go, hey, I made the best call I could at that time. And under a rational review later on, still go, well, hey, given that same information, I'd still make that call.
Yeah.
But we've got to do the work. We've got to do the work to be someone who can really take advantage of intuition. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And Bozana St. John, I know it's a bit of a name. She also, in her talks, she also says this. She said, she is working on herself nonstop. You have to become authentic. You have to know who you are. You have to be aware. So she really also, you could say she conveys the being aspects of, how we work with being. And she said, you have to work on yourself. And she also gives courses, and she's very realistic about what she is conveying to her students. The first thing is, you need to work on yourself.
And let's be clear, Jack, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
That's what we do as coaches and consultants and businesses. We help people work on themselves, work on their teams, to build up their armory, if you want, their capability, their understanding of themselves. And actually, more often than not, Jack, I find it's about making sure they disabuse themselves of the stories they tell themselves. And I'm doing the same. I tell myself stories, and a coach would come along and go, "Why are you believing in that, John? That's please justify that to me." And all good coaches need to have coaches. If you don't have a coach as a coach, then you don't believe in coaching, do you? I mean, obviously you
That's
don't.
right. That's right.
So,
And Robbins also has a coach.
hmm, hmm,
Yeah, yeah, that's also a really good point to have the awareness or the authentic awareness, because otherwise you use your intuition or what you think is your intuition, and it comes across as in, we would say, like making decisions from the hip. You're just making decisions and, oh
yeah.
yeah, that feels good, let's make that decision. But you need to have a certain level of awareness and being connected to reality and understanding the implications and understanding why you're doing it, which,
Mm.
in the case of Tim Cook and Bozana, they knew why they were doing it, and they had a lot of awareness. They weren't just making randomly, oh, let's just do that. No,
Mm.
they deeply knew this is the right thing to do. And when we take it apart, they have skills, experience, they have analyzed it, they've looked at it, and then they had the sense, let's do that.
Now, and if a listener's hearing us now and they'd like to know more about this and know more about how they can develop themselves and bring a better understanding of their own intuition, which will get you ahead of the game, because your intuition's your intuition. And as long as it's on song and you're listening, then that's a great way of expressing your unique being into the world. If you
Mm.
want to know more about how we can get in touch, all the
Yeah,
contacts are
yeah,
below. Get in
especially.
touch, get in touch with Jack or myself, and we're more than happy to talk to you and set up a one-on-one and work with you to help you and your team make yourselves as effective a leader as you possibly can be.
Mm.
So, and intuition possibly is the icing on the cake, Jacqueline. I mean, it's like you've
It
got
it
somewhere when you can effectively use
yeah,
intuition.
it is. I mean, I remember one major project, the biggest project I eventually was able to run as a program manager, which in its initial phases, we needed to make a decision which route we were going to go to, basically on a technology basis. We're going to go A or B, and the team probably did 6 to 8 months of analysis, and they studied and researched. It was quite a huge program, and just so the listeners understand the significance of the decision. And this was a program that was run over 3 years, or was planned to be run over 3 years, which it did. And it cost 40 million euro for the 3 years. So this was a huge decision. So we did,
Mm-hmm.
8 months of analysis, maybe even more, and meetings and understanding which direction to take. And then the day has come where the big boss came, and he knew all about it. He was in all those meetings. Everyone was there. We said, today we're going to make the decision. So option A was presented again. Option B was presented again. And if you would have asked the technical experts, they would have said, basically, we cannot really make a decision, because both options are quite different. Both options have obviously risks, but they're not, we can't say we can do option A because it's better because of something. We simply can't say. You
Mm-hmm.
could toss a coin.
There was no obvious winner.
There was no obvious winner. Yeah, thank you. No obvious winner. And then the boss said, okay, let's go for lunch, and after lunch we make the decision. So we went for lunch.
Good
After
idea.
lunch we made the decision. Yeah, good on him. And then later I asked him, he made the decision, we go for option bomb. No, and nobody, we all said okay, because that was really, someone had to make the decision which option, and we were,
And it's his job as the leader. Stand up and
that's
make
right,
the
he's the
decision.
leader. and he was supported by us. If he would have taken the other option, we would have supported him as
Also
well.
been supported.
It was basically toss a coin. It sounds really, if you think about the amount of investments in this project, but we've done a lot of analysis. So I asked him later, what made you pick this option? Guess what he said?
I don't know. Maybe you tossed a coin over lunchtime somewhere.
No, he said, I followed my gut feeling.
Followed his gut feeling. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it's important to step away from that. So I think he did a very wise thing in taking a break and going to lunch, allowing his brain to do what his brain will do, which is analyze the options. And clearly both these options were viable options.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So therefore that mitigated somewhat the risk, but you wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
And he would have known that he had to make that decision.
Yeah.
And so when he said, we're going to have lunch and then we'll make the decision.
He probably already made
it was me. He's thinking, we're going to have lunch and then I'll let you know once I'm absolutely sure.
And I'll let you know. I'll give myself a lunch break to think it through.
And then come back.
Yeah. And it was fine. It wasn't that there were two sort of parties and, this party wanted this and this. No, we were honestly just looking for the best possible solution. And obviously a lot of experience, skill, and analytical thinking has gone into it. But there is a point where you can do this until the cows come home. You won't get the different results. You have to make a decision.
Yeah. Now, and this is interesting because you go.
No, because I have one more thing which is highly exciting, but you can go first and then we could do the other thing.
No, I don't want to derail. You go first and I'll come back with my thought. Don't worry about it.
Right. There is an institute which is called Heart Math. Heart from your heart and math from thinking. It started off in the US, but there's also a department here in Sydney. And the website is heartmath.com. So you can go and check it out. So what they do is they research the connection between the heart and the brain. So they found amazing results. And it sort of comes back to how strong the heart is. For example, every body, whether it's an organic body or a physical body, has an electromagnetic field. You can measure the electromagnetic field of the brain, which we do all the time to kind of see if there's anything wrong with the brain or the processing, and so you can do with the heart. And I don't know the exact numbers, but they should be the dimension should be right. So the electrical field that the brain has compared to what the heart is around 100 times stronger in its electrical field. In its magnetic field compared to the brain, the heart is 5,000 times stronger. So that is just a very interesting result. And you as a researcher, you think, well, that must be, that must be serving a purpose somewhere. That's not to declassify the brain. It's just two very different organs. But we haven't really, we give so much focus to the brain, but we haven't given that much focus to what's actually happening with the heart.
That just makes me want to ask the question, but what about gut?
That's not what the heart math. I do understand, and I could talk for hours. I mean, that's going to bring me on a different tangent, but we can go there as well. With the Heart Math Institute, I mean, what they also found, and they have measured this also, is when we make a decision. This is going to throw a lot of people who are very logical. Or dominantly logical throw out, but you can go to the website heartmath.com and check it and find it. When we make a decision, the heart has made the decision and tells the brain, this is what I decided, find your justification. And then the
Yeah.
brain said, oh yeah, this is why we decided this. It happened so fast. Obviously, with our devices, we can measure the difference, but it happened so fast that we as a human being cannot tell the difference. So we think the brain has made the choice, but it didn't. Or the logical um, considerations have made the choice, and it didn't. And
And good
sometimes,
salespeople have known that for decades.
well, yeah,
It's
that we make.
we're emotional animals that justify our emotions through reason.
I know, but now we have, we have
Now we have evidence.
scientific data. I find this, yeah, I know, I know that salespeople know this, but the thing is, a lot of people find it very challenging to accept this. They think, well, there must be a logical reason. Logic
But,
is a tool, but not the master. It's a
but
really
this
good tool.
and this is goes to awareness, doesn't it? Like this is a lovely piece of information for our listeners to understand that it is our heart and our emotions that makes the decision, and our brain that then justifies it with logic. Um, and knowing that, just knowing that, is a way of putting a question mark next to the the decision, saying, okay, so let me just check that out. Knowing that that's the way we function as beings, and that instinctive reaction is also triggered by patterns. We talk about a lot of this, the Engenesis method, like our amygdala is we're looking for patterns, we create patterns, and then we react as we did in the past to that pattern, which might have kept us alive in the days gone by when we had to worry about predators, etc. And even now, probably use predators, but it's not helpful in when we find ourselves being triggered in the office, etc., etc. We've got to then go, hang on, let's get some space here. And also, like I wonder also that you get used to that, as you say, how you feel your intuition, how you know what your intuition is telling you, and you
And how
believe yourself. You get some muscle around that. Does that make
that's
sense?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes total sense. And it it conveys the information in different ways to you. And
Hmm.
I mean, the first way is that the body resonates, and we're going to go back to the gut as well. I'm happy to talk about this as well. But yes, and also the way sometimes my intuition comes across, and that's different for different people. Obviously, I sense, and the gut feeling. The gut is one of the a big sensing
Hmm.
for instinctual safety or danger. And that's where, if someone has a hidden agenda or is lying to you, you feel it in your gut, but you might also feel it around your heart center. But the gut is
Hmm.
is resonating with sort of any sort of dangerous situation. Um, and I think, no, just lost my train of thought there.
I'm just thinking because I'm sorry, I'm sitting here and I've got this pop song going through my head now. Listen to your heart, listen to like, obviously that's a bit lighthearted, but most humans, I think, would go, yeah, at some point in time, listening to your heart's a really, really good idea.
It is.
And when you go against that, you're arguably going against the core of who you really are, and finding happiness down that route and contentedness down that
Hmm.
route is a very difficult thing to do because you're compromised from get-go.
Yeah, Yeah, it's you may not make decisions that that you put you in a comfortable spot. It may make you
Mm,
actually really uncomfortable, but there are different benefits in it.
mm,
And I do want to talk about the gut, brain, and heart. And I think the gut is the one that's sort of telling you, am I safe? Is this a good situation? And you kind of, this is maybe a first impression. I don't know, but it's an impression you get of the situation. It's assessing, am I safe in this situation? Is this person? Can I trust the person? And that gets filtered up through the heart. Maybe you a person is grumpy to you, and your first initial you triggered, and you think, oh, this, and then you can filter it through the heart, and you can have compassion, and you can think, okay, well, maybe they're just having a bad day, so maybe I can let that go. And then there's
mm.
the brain, which sort of gives this sort of analytical perspective to things, where, especially if it's more complex scenarios and decisions you have to make. And again, this is also filtered through the heart. And I think those three, sort of also referred to as chakras, um, they need to be aligned. They need to be in alignment. If you step over your heart, you might be in a job that's not giving you the fulfillment or the higher purpose. But your gut is telling you, oh, it's not safe, don't change your job now. And then the brain is telling you, yeah, but look at it long term. If you stay in this unhappy job, maybe it has some other stresses, and you may even get sick and blah blah. And then the heart says, go for what your heart says. So it needs to be in alignment. So the brain is helping you to implement change in a sort
So,
of right, relatively safe manner, but sometimes it's not safe.
so you would just as a model, you would recommend that an individual has a discussion between their brain and their heart and their gut. Well, we do. We have all these voices going on. I mean,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
favorite ones that go, who do you think you are, and you're not good enough.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Who do you
that's
think
those
you
that
are?
who do you think you are? Like it's like duh. But we again go back to this awareness need, the need for awareness that these things may not be, or we're starting to be able to scientifically explain them. And you just indicated that with heartmath.com, the work they're doing and others are doing around there,
Yeah.
that there is actually a real conversation going on in our bodies. Best we be aware of that and the
Yeah.
feelings of it. And
Yeah.
I think this is, where people talk about the comfort zone
Yeah.
and going outside the comfort zone. You can do that comfortably or uncomfortably. You can do that with the knowledge that you have, the integrity to venture forth on the journey you're going. So logically, you can go, you know what, I've got every right to be sitting here with Jacqueline and talking about leadership and intuition and all these different things because I've done the work. I've created this version of John who has the knowledge and the credibility to sit here and do that. John of 10, 15 years ago wouldn't have a clue what this bloke's on about. But I've done the work. And so I think this is an important thing. And then you can take the levels of discomfort and go further out there, listening to heart, brain, gut, and knowing what you have in skill. So you can actually progress yourself through there. And the intuition is coming in all the time in that situation because you're actually listening to yourself.
That's right. And sometimes sort of in regards to the this uncomfortable situations or uncomfortable decisions that I that could be very good for you. Sometimes there's this saying, oh, become comfortable with the uncomfortable. It doesn't work
Mm.
like this. Uncomfortable is uncomfortable. You and also as you go through life and you make an uncomfortable decision, which is in a decision that's uncomfortable but in the benefit for your greater good, then the next time that particular decision might be easier. But then there is another decision that will challenge you even more. So there is never really a point where you can say, "Oh, I'm comfortable with the uncomfortable." No, you have expanded your uncomfortable zone, and now discomfort is a little bit
Further out.
further out.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
you
I'm
have.
like I'm thinking of where you grow in an aligned fashion. You know, you
Mm,
talk about alignment, heart, brain, and gut, and your mission, your understanding of yourself, your greater self. See, when I have to make a decision that might make me unpopular, which is often a discomforting thing, or change things in my life that other people in my life would prefer to say stay the same, because after all, we've trained people how to react to us. And then when we go and change as human beings, they go, well, hang on, that's not what we're familiar with. And
yeah,
there's pushback,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But so long as that decision to make that change, to be that person, is aligned with my values and who I say I am, the discomfort is nowhere near as great as going along with what other people think I should be, or
yeah,
make a decision that other people might be more popular,
yeah,
but in fact, it leaves me feeling trashed
yeah,
at the end of the day. So being true to yourself is really, really vital in venturing outside and getting that growth. And the more
yeah,
you're true to yourself, the more you grow.
absolutely. Yeah, that's very well put. Um,
Mm.
and good to point this out. You need to be true to yourself, and it's true. If you change, people around you are used to a certain Jacqueline, and now Jacqueline is different, and some people find it too challenging to be with. But you can also manage it, as in, um, explaining it to a few people, saying, well, I've just learned certain things about myself, and this is not what I want to do anymore. I'm now doing this. And some people will be able to be open to that and think, okay, cool. And some people won't. Um,
Other ones will think you're crazy.
yeah,
And I might be
you're
right
crazy.
in their world.
You're crazy. Um,
And they may be right in their world, but you
yeah,
got to live your life.
that's right. In their world, in their value system, that's how they see it, and that's okay.
Live and let live. But
Live
getting
and
back to
let
this
live.
intuition, well, that intuition, it does keep you on track, though, doesn't it? You know, like for me, I look at a decision, and sometimes, where we have to put ourselves out, like being on a podcast, or presenting somewhere, or even just going out and meeting people and telling them what I do. Um, I find that there's that little voice in the back of my head says, yes, but you must do this, John. You must do this, because otherwise you're fundamentally a liar, because you say that your vision is to live in a world of enlightened citizens and leaders, and then you sit on your hands and do nothing.
Yeah,
What does that do?
yeah.
So move. We
More.
talked about anxiety, getting it, last one was like, anxiety is good because it goes, you need to do something, son. You need to do it. But
And
then intuition comes and says, but here's how to do it. Here's a thought.
yeah, that is so good. It's like intuition gives you these breadcrumbs, do this.
Mm,
And
mm.
I also remember from situations where I call it like an inspired thought, where I thought, oh my God, I'll do this. And I've
There you go.
and when I have this feeling, I have now trained myself to immediately, if I can, immediately react on it and put this inspired thought into place unless I'm in a situation where I can't. And what I found is I've done some incredibly successful things when I acted on this inspired thought, and
Mm.
even I find the less delay in there, the better, because you're on this high, on this momentum, and then things just unravel. I mean, it sounds very easy and magical, and it doesn't happen like this all the time. But when this happens, it is magical, and then people come into your life who are aligned with who you are. But you also need to be open to adjust this inspired thought, which I also find
Yeah.
it's like you have this inspired thought, you do something, but it does require also adjustments along the way. So to
I'd
stay in
love to give you
this
an
flow.
example.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got a
go ahead.
golden example, right?
Go ahead.
So when I set up Roxel Australasia, which is a paper trading company based here in Australia, and looked for markets where we should go, the market that the Roxel Group internationally is the biggest trader of paperboard, think stuff like folders and Weet-Bix packets. And the most underdeveloped market was America. And so I said, "Oh, I'll go to America.
Cool. Great
I'll sell New
idea.
Zealand stuff well, hell, huge, you know." So who knows something in America? Well, Pratt Industries, aka Visi here. So I asked my contacts there who they knew over in America. So they knew this guy in California. Turns out he was a former employee of Nestle, and he knew that Nestle were looking for a grease-resistant box board to pack cat food in. I happen to represent a mill in New Zealand that did virgin quality board and could do grease resistance to very high levels, because believe it or not, all cat kibble is sprayed with chicken fat, and in America they spray it with more chicken fat than anywhere else in the world. Now, if that gets through into the front of the packaging, everybody goes, "Ew, that's horrible. It's all oily. I'm not going to give that to my cat." You know, the cat will love it. But you got to resist. So anyway, listen, let me tell you where that led. That took years to put that trade in place. But then that ended up in something like 120, 130 tons a month of paperboard going from New Zealand to Grand Rapids, being converted into cat food boxes for samplers. These are the ones that went into convenience stores and that sort of thing. So people would, "Oh, I'll try that. See if Missy likes that." And then they go and buy a stack of it, you know. So this is
That's
how big the American
amazing.
market was.
That is
And
amazing.
it was literally millions and millions and millions of dollars of trade that happened, because I thought, "Oh, I'll go to America."
Yeah, you had
And
the
it just
fire
fell, as
thought.
you said, it just fell into place. You had to have the skills, you had to have the
Yeah,
integrity, you had to have the
that's
ability to back it up. But it was the magical idea, the powerful idea that said, "Well, everybody says we're in part of Asia and this is good." And it is. Hey, there was a lot of inter-Asian trade and whatnot, but this is the big one over here. Go there. And it worked.
And I mean, beautiful story. I love it. And it is important to highlight that, you had the skills, the connections, and everything was already there. And then you had the inspired thought. Sometimes people think, "Oh, if I just have an inspired thought and I would just build this business." But if you don't have the experience, it might take you a little bit longer. So just in quotation, the inspired thought is
And then
not
be curious.
yeah. It,
Be curious around it. Ask questions.
and
Why not?
yeah, and the thing is, the thing is, when you hear these amazing success stories like what you've just shared, or the story with Tim Cook or Bozana, um, they also, they had the skills, as we said before, they worked on themselves, and they were ready for this. And then they had this, gut feel, "No, I need to do the other thing." So there is some foundation there as well, that I just didn't plug it out of the fresh air just because I thought they felt, "Oh, let's do that." Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what Aristotle wrote in the Nicomachean Ethics, which Andrea is one of them. Which, I come back to this because I love my brand name in Australia,
Of course.
because it is. It's having the character and the courage to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. Figure that out. That's what I did. I went and did the right thing at the right time for the right
Right
reason.
reasons. Oh,
And
that's
I had the courage and the character to go out and do it.
and do it. And do it.
And you know, if we all are capable of doing that, and the interesting thing is the other three major cardinal virtues are justice, prudence, and temperance. So, you know, be fair, be clever, you know, you know, and think about the timing. It's all on the timing. You know, don't be in a hurry. Don't rush things. So it's a very interesting thought about doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
Right reason.
And who do you have to be to do that? And that's the being conversation.
Yeah.
And that's another huge thing we've got over there. But you know, hey, again, people want to know more about this stuff. Get in touch with us.
Yeah.
And if you've got a subject you'd like us to pull apart and have a discussion over,
yeah,
let us know, and we'll roll into that as well. So all good fun at the party. So does my intuition tell me correctly we've got this one nailed now, Jacqueline?
yes.
Or is there more to
Your intuition is right. I also got that hint. I think this is we've wrapped it up, and we can always come back to it and do more, but we've exhausted it